The canceled podcast wasn't the only thing that ended, because behind the scenes, friendships are collapsing, assistants are walking out, and shady moves are being called out left and right. Fans thought Tana Mongeau and Brooke Schofield's decision to pull the plug on their podcast was the biggest shock of the year, but that was just the beginning. From a messy fallout with Brooke's assistant, to cryptic TikToks, to Ashley Schwan publicly admitting she doesn't even like Brooke, this entire friend group is unraveling faster than anyone expected. And the real reasons behind it, way more complicated than what you've seen on the surface. When Tana and Brooke first launched the canceled podcast, fans thought it was going to be unstoppable. But not long after announcing season 2, things took a shocking turn. The show was ending early. At first, people assumed this was just another classic Tana move, dramatic, chaotic, and unpredictable. But then rumors started swirling that there was way more to the story. Tana admitted that she was the one who pushed to shut it down, explaining that sitting on that couch every week felt mentally exhausting and almost unbearable. And while she framed it as a personal decision for her mental health, fans weren't buying it. Instead, speculation immediately turned to Brooke. Was her growing backlash online, especially around her engagement, dragging the podcast down? Was their friendship itself becoming too toxic to survive? Ending the podcast early sent one clear message: something wasn't adding up. And this wasn't the only fracture in their world, because soon, people started noticing Brooke's other friendships falling apart too. The moment the podcast ended, the internet went wild with one question: are Tana and Brooke even friends anymore? On social media, fans picked apart every interaction, or lack of interaction, between them. Were they avoiding each other? Were they throwing shade? Or was this all just speculation fueled by people who wanted drama? Publicly, both of them tried to shut down the rumors. They insisted the friendship was fine, that there was no secret feud, and that the podcast ending had nothing to do with bad blood. But the problem was, their explanations didn't convince anyone. Because at the same time, edits and clips of the two looking tense or distant kept spreading online, and fans couldn't shake the feeling that the besties were drifting apart fast. It didn't help that Brooke was already drowning in backlash. From the criticism of her engagement to people calling her unlikable, she became the easy target in every rumor. And while Tana stayed mostly unbothered, Brooke was left in the middle of a storm that seemed to get bigger every single day. And then, just as fans were trying to figure out if Brooke and Tana's friendship was cracking, an entirely new feud exploded, this time involving Brooke's own assistant. Just when people thought the podcast ending was the biggest mess, Brooke's own assistant and former close friend, BB, suddenly cut ties. Overnight, fans noticed that BB had unfollowed Brooke, removed her tags from photos, and even blocked her on social media. For an influencer's inner circle, that's basically the ultimate betrayal. The internet immediately started speculating what could have gone so wrong. Some pointed to Brooke's comments on the canceled podcast, where she casually mentioned that BB had been fired during their tour in Europe. But BB wasn't about to stay quiet. She jumped into the comment sections, setting the record straight. She wasn't fired, she quit, and she didn't even want to continue as Brooke's assistant in Australia. That should have cleared things up, but instead, it made everything worse. Because alongside her clapbacks, BB began posting cryptic TikToks that felt way too personal to ignore. Things like, "Hating me is valid. I probably held you accountable for your vile behavior, and stop being considerate in situations where you're not considered." Fans instantly connected the dots. This wasn't just about a job. Something way deeper had gone down between Brooke and BB, and the cryptic posts only fueled suspicions that the fallout wasn't as simple as Brooke tried to make it seem. But if fans thought the assistant drama was wild, the next theory pointed to an even messier reason for their falling out: Brooke's relationship. If the fallout felt private and cryptic, Ashley Schwan's feud with Brooke was the exact opposite. It was loud, public, and impossible to ignore. It all started with Tana's birthday, when Ashley gifted her a custom Guess Who game featuring their entire friend group. Cute idea, right? Well, not exactly, because while everyone else got fun, flattering pictures, Brooke's photo stood out for all the wrong reasons. It was unflattering, awkward, and instantly read as shade. Fans online caught it immediately, calling the move straight up mean and questioning why Tana would even laugh along with someone who clearly didn't like her supposed best friend. And Ashley didn't exactly try to hide her feelings. When people confronted her about the choice, she doubled down, saying the first photo she put into the AI just turned out like that, but then bluntly admitted, "I don't like her and that's okay." For Brooke, that wasn't just shade, that was a full-on public declaration. Of course, the internet wasn't satisfied with a vague answer. They wanted to know why Ashley disliked Brooke so much. That's when theories started flying, and one old controversy got dragged back into the spotlight. When Ashley admitted she didn't like Brooke, fans immediately connected it back to a scandal that had been whispered about for years, the so-called mini situation. Here's the story. Brooke allegedly hooked up with someone Tana liked, and a lot of people saw it as an intentional betrayal. That moment left a mark, and fans speculated that Ashley's dislike for Brooke stemmed all the way back to that. But Ashley wasn't about to let the internet paint her as a hypocrite. In her own video, she clarified that yes, she had once been in a messy situation with Tana too, but according to her, it was completely different. She described it as a miscommunication, not a betrayal, and insisted that Brooke's actions were deliberate while hers were handled privately with Tana offline. Fans weren't convinced. To them, Ashley was splitting hairs and trying to justify the fact that she and Brooke had done the same thing, just under different circumstances. Some people sided with Ashley, saying Brooke had a pattern of shady behavior. Others thought Ashley was reaching, pointing out that if she really didn't care, she wouldn't still be bringing it up years later. Either way, the mini situation just reignited the idea that Brooke's place in Tana's friend group had been rocky from the start, and now, those cracks were beginning to split the entire circle apart. By this point, it wasn't just about Brooke versus Tana, or Brooke versus BB, or Brooke versus Ashley. It was about the entire friend group spiraling into chaos. Every few weeks, someone new seemed to be unfollowing, posting shady TikToks, or dropping hints that things weren't nearly as perfect as they looked online. To fans, it painted a clear picture. This group isn't built to last. One day they're partying together, the next they're dragging each other in comments, and then they're back pretending nothing ever happened. The constant shifts left people wondering whether Tana was the glue that held everyone together, or the common denominator fueling all the drama. Because no matter how much they tried to downplay it, the truth was clear. Between a canceled podcast, an assistant-turned-enemy, and friends openly shading each other, the cracks in this group are impossible to ignore. And as more drama keeps surfacing, fans are asking the one question no one seems willing to answer: who's really to blame? By now, Brooke wasn't just caught in one feud, she was at the center of all of them. And online, the backlash was relentless. Every TikTok, every podcast clip, every shady repost seemed to end with the same conclusion: Brooke was the problem. Fans started making edits, painting her as the villain of the friend group. Even when the drama didn't directly involve her, people somehow dragged her name into it. And the more she stayed quiet, the more the internet filled in the blanks with their own theories. To some, Brooke was simply unlucky, the scapegoat for everything that went wrong around Tana. But to others, her silence looked like guilt. They saw her as the common denominator, the one everyone eventually fell out with, no matter the situation. And the worst part, once the internet decides someone is the villain, it's almost impossible to change that narrative. But Brooke's problems didn't stop there, because Ashley wasn't done defending herself, and her response only made things more complicated. After the Guess Who game backlash, Ashley Schwan wasn't about to stay quiet. She jumped online to defend herself, insisting the whole thing had been blown way out of proportion. According to her, every single person in the game had goofy, unflattering photos. Brooke wasn't singled out at all. To Ashley, it was nothing more than a joke that TikTok had twisted into drama. But then came the part that made everything worse. She casually admitted, "I don't like her and that's okay." It was blunt, dismissive, and instantly turned the situation into more than just a silly board game. When pressed on why she didn't like Brooke, Ashley brushed it off with lines like, "Some people click and some don't. It's really not that serious." But the way she shrugged it off only fueled more questions. If it really wasn't that serious, why keep repeating that she didn't like Brooke? Why publicly double down on it? For fans, Ashley's defense didn't smooth things over, it lit the fire even higher. And soon, the debate turned from Brooke versus Ashley into something much bigger, a full-on fandom war. The moment Ashley doubled down, the internet split in two. On one side were the people cheering her honesty. Finally, someone was brave enough to admit they didn't like Brooke. But on the other side were fans calling her a hypocrite. Why? Because Ashley had been accused of doing the exact same thing Brooke did during the mini situation. Both had allegedly hooked up with people Tana liked, yet Ashley was now dragging Brooke as if her own hands were clean. To critics, it looked like a case of rules for you but not for me. Supporters argued Ashley's explanation made sense. Hers was a misunderstanding. Brooke's was intentional. But skeptics weren't buying it. To them, if Ashley was really over it, she wouldn't keep bringing it up years later. The debate got so intense that it stopped being about the drama itself and turned into something bigger, a battle over loyalty, morals, and who fans believed was telling the truth. And while Ashley fought to defend her side, one person stayed suspiciously quiet through all of it, Tana. While Brooke and Ashley's feud played out in public, and BB dropped cryptic shade all over TikTok, Tana barely said a word. For someone who thrives on chaos and usually jumps headfirst into drama, her silence was almost louder than anything she could have posted. To some fans, this looked like strategy. If she stayed quiet, she didn't have to pick sides between her closest friends. But to others, it felt calculated, like Tana was letting the drama play out just enough to keep the spotlight on her circle without actually getting her own hands dirty. And the more people looked back at Tana's history, the clearer the pattern became. Drama swirled around her constantly, but she rarely took the fall for it. Instead, it was always her friends, Brooke, Ashley, BB, or someone else in her orbit, that ended up carrying the blame while Tana watched from the sidelines. It raised a question fans couldn't ignore. Was Tana the glue holding this group together, or was she the quiet spark behind every falling out? If all of this sounds familiar, that's because it is. Tana Mongeau's friendships have always been a revolving door of chaos. From public fallouts with past besties to messy reconciliations that never seem to last, fans have seen this pattern repeat over and over again. Every few years, there's a new at best friend in Tana's life, someone she travels with, parties with, films with nonstop. And just as quickly as they rise, the friendship seems to crash and burn. The cycle almost always looks the same: nonstop bonding, public drama, shady comments, and then silence. Now, with Brooke, BB, and Ashley all caught in the crossfire, fans are asking if history is just repeating itself. Is Brooke the latest in a long line of Tana's friends to get pushed out once things get too messy? Or is this time different, because instead of one falling out, the entire group looks like it's crumbling at the same time? Whatever the answer, the cycle shows no signs of slowing down. And that leaves just one big question: who's even going to last in Tana's inner circle by the end of all this? With so many cracks showing, the future of this friend group has never looked shakier. Fans are already speculating about who's going to stay, and who's about to get iced out for good. Some believe Brooke's days in Tana's circle are numbered, that the constant backlash, feuds, and silent treatment from her closest friends are too much to recover from. Others think Ashley is about to move even closer into Tana's spotlight, especially now that she's openly distancing herself from Brooke. And then there's BB, who might be gone for good, unless another reconciliation plays out in front of cameras like so many times before. The wildest part, with Tana at the center, anything can happen. This friend group has a way of tearing itself apart in public, then suddenly showing up together again like nothing ever happened. But even if they do, fans won't forget the shade, the comments, or the messy public callouts. Which means the real cliffhanger isn't whether they'll reunite, it's how long before it all blows up again. If there's one thing that can make drama even bigger, it's TikTok edits. And in this case, the edits completely took over the narrative. Suddenly Brooke was being painted as the villain, Ashley as the bold truth teller, and BB as the wronged victim. Clips were cut and remixed to show Brooke looking annoyed, rolling her eyes, or sitting awkwardly, and once those edits started going viral, people stopped questioning the context. The internet had already decided who the bad guy was, and the more these edits spread, the harder it became for Brooke to defend herself. Because online, perception becomes reality. If millions of people see you framed as the toxic friend, it doesn't matter what really happened, that becomes your reputation. For Brooke, it meant that every new rumor, every shade-filled TikTok, only confirmed what fans had already been primed to believe. And while she struggled under the weight of that image, another controversy was bubbling up, one that had less to do with friendship and more to do with business. When Tana first revealed that she wanted to end Cancelled before the contract was up, fans couldn't believe it. Walking away early meant leaving money, exposure, and influence on the table. So why would anyone do that? Tana explained it as a mental health decision, saying she was drained and couldn't keep up with the negativity. But the internet wasn't convinced. Many believe the real reason was sitting right next to her, Brooke. Ending things early looked less like self-care and more like an escape hatch. What made it even messier was that this wasn't just a personal choice, it was a business move. Contracts mean deadlines, deliverables, and paychecks. And the fact that Tana was willing to throw that away suggested the tension behind the scenes had to be way worse than anyone realized. So while Tana painted it as her taking back her peace, fans kept asking, was it really about peace, or about finally cutting ties with Brooke without admitting it? And that question only added more fuel to the fire, because within their circle, lines were being drawn, and Brooke seemed to be losing allies fast. From a podcast that ended too soon, to assistants walking out, shady birthday gifts, and old scandals being dug back up, Tana Mongeau's friend group has turned into one of the messiest soap operas on the internet. Brooke has become the lightning rod for nearly every rumor. Ashley has made it clear she doesn't care to play nice. BB has exited with cryptic shade. And Tana? She stayed quiet, letting the chaos swirl around her. At this point, the cracks are impossible to ignore. What started as whispers about a podcast ending has exploded into a full-on unraveling of a friend group that once looked inseparable. And while they might eventually smile for photos again, the trust and the drama isn't going away anytime soon. So the real question is this: is Brooke really the problem everyone makes her out to be? Or is she just the latest casualty in Tana's never-ending cycle of chaotic friendships? Let me know what you think in the comments, because if there's one thing this story proves, it's that in Tana's world, the drama is never really over.